because he gave so much rights to the women back then. Women were not treated fairly. They didn't have, of course, the right to contribute to society or vote or all these things. But he gave them that these rights of equalness in the sense of humanness with men, so that they are treated equally. They just have different roles and responsibilities than men. So in that sense, and just to just speak briefly about the concept of equality in Islam, that we do believe definitely men and women are equal, and in all senses of their humanness and their, that they are going to be held accountable similarly, they are going to be judged similarly, that, none is superior to the other. However, it's been so stereotyped that Islam does oppress women, or, all these sorts of things because of, the fact that we see that there's cultural influences that happen, to be women cannot be educated or women cannot drive in Saudi Arabia, and all these things are derived from culture, and we just have to distinguish them from the religion. And those things, that are cultural based are nowhere, derived from the Islamic rule. And so, but in roles and responsibilities, however, Islamically, there are different roles and responsibilities for men and women. So for example, men are obliged to take care of the family, provide for the family, go out and even pay all the house expenses, all the expenses of the wife herself. So that is his obligation. And in a sense, he's, if you can just enter from that door, that would be easier. So in that sense, they don't have to be equal, that 50-50 share, you work, I work, you raise the children and I do it too, and all these things, because by nature they're different. Women have to get pregnant, and they have to deliver and have to go through that pain. So by nature they're different. It's not fair to give them equal responsibilities. And so there is that equality in the humanness, but the roles and responsibilities are depending on the gender's nature. So that's why there's different roles and responsibilities. And so we might wonder, similarly, as Muslims, how come we are so stuck? A lot of people wonder, okay, so how come Islam did not size up to the level of freedom that was given to the women now in the 20th century? That, okay, it came and liberated women back then, and then, gave them all these freedoms that did not happen back then, but now, why isn't it sizing up to the freedom, the other extreme, the other, this much of freedom in the 20th century? And, to answer that, before I answer that, actually, I do want to clarify a point, that in Islam, the Quran, or the method of deriving Islamic law, all comes from the Quran, the Holy Book, which we believe is the Word of God, and it has been preserved from generation to generation ever since it has been revealed on our Prophet Muhammad. And even, the hearts of hundreds and thousands in every generation would memorize it from cover to cover. So it's very interesting that it has been preserved throughout, even not a word has been changed, and we believe that it is the pure Word of God. So it's different in the sense of there are interpretations, there are commentaries, but they have been distinguished and set aside from the Quran. And you see that in the different holy books, in the previous holy books like the Bible, the Torah, there has been commentaries that came and went and has been mixed in with the actual words of God, and which is why it's so hard to distinguish what is really came from God Himself and what really came, from interpretations. And we don't have that concept in Islam. We believe that every Quran, it has been preserved, and from cover to cover it is the Word of God. And so this is why we believe that, whatever comes from the Quran is perfect, and that we do follow it because it is from God. And that there's no room for scholars to come along and say, women don't have to cover now. No, because we always go back to the Quran, and as much of knowledge the Muslim scholars get, their knowledge is not to give law. Their knowledge is to interpret law. So the only lawgiver is God Himself. And the scholars are only there to interpret that law. So nobody has that right of giving you what to do or to establish law except for God Himself. And so, again, now going back to answering the question of why, as Muslim women, we couldn't just size up to the freedoms of the women right now after the movements and what have come in the 20th century. Well, to answer that, I'll go into the reasons why, as Muslims, we have to cover, and the wisdoms behind covering in society. So, again, like I said in the beginning, the only one reason is to fully submit to God, obedience and respect to the most gracious, most high, the all-wise, the all-knowing, and the one who has every right to command us, as He is our Creator. However, the wisdoms, Islam does set up a complementation that ensures a successful preservation of the social structure and the institution of family at large. One of the particles of such attempt is by protecting and preserving modesty in society. So even the state of women in modern days, a lot of the feminists themselves, so if you look at different philosophers and the feminist writers, they have claimed and they have said that after such freedoms were given, that freedom with no limit, that freedom of sexuality for women has resulted in greater sexual freedoms for the opposite sex. And why is that? It has resulted in and this is quoted from different feminist writers like Platay, that it has resulted in the sexual objectification of the women. This state of women, like openness in the latest 20 years, has become in reality man's paradise. And again, other feminist writers have written about the pitiful status of women in modern day societies, because statistics, the data shows that although they are richer than ever before, however, they are also sadder than ever before. And this is, statistics that has been done since 1955 till now. Has been many-fold increase in women being depressed disproportionately to men. Pornography has grown up to a $30 billion industry since the 1950s. In time, it was mentioned that men, they think about sex multiple times every second, and women, they think, they are not being objectified. So it's that sense that, preserving the women, not exposing ourselves, and, result of 100 years of feminism, and this is again, Platay saying this, as many of the feminists say, men have been sexually set free rather than women. And 130,000 cases of rape has been happening every year. You see around that even fashion industries, and that women are really being so enslaved to the fashion industry, and you see so much of the magazines and supermodels, and the 3 billion women in the world. It's not fair that they have to look like 20 supermodels who are on cover magazines, right? So it's that idea that I want to look like that, I want to be like that, it's all about beauty or exposing or pleasing, and looking good for others. So Islam does not approve of that, which is why we think that as Muslim women we should actually cover and not expose. And even the family unit itself, it happened to cause more destruction within the family unit, and it caused higher divorce rates and more single moms than ever before, just because at first fighting for freedoms that they need to be equal to men, that was definitely great, and something that women definitely achieved, that we get the right to vote, we get the right to be educated, we get the right to do the same thing as men. However, that size of freedom in even in the dress code, that by itself, as Muslims we believe that actually results in greater freedom for the opposite gender. Rather, we should respect our body and not expose ourselves, and that's the main reason why in Islam we do it as a sign of modesty. So even I came here when I was in 5th grade, and I came from Jordan. And then it was just so weird for me, like, when I first came as a 5th grader, that I saw, you know, the different students, like, this was the first time I hear about something called dating, you know, that he asked me out, and this guy has a crush on her, and, you know, all these types of things, and I was like, what is that? Like, what does that even mean? I didn't know what that